Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our town hall this evening. We're going to try and we'll cover quite a few different things. Talk about both the programs, but we want to kind of go through the agenda on here. We're going to hear from our board, then we're going to hear from our executive director, and then I'll kind of fill you in a little bit on what we know and don't know about the programs and how we're going to conduct our season this year. Like all the rest of our past town halls, I mean, we kind of have the same housekeeping. You know, we're recording it so people can watch it after the fact. We'll do questions at the end, but feel free to type them in as we go. And remember that on the Twitch side, in order to type a question, you have to be logged into Twitch in order to type them. We have a hard stop at 7 o'clock, but if we have additional questions, we'll make sure we answer them for everybody. And then, you know, this isn't going to be the last one of these we have. We'll be having them as the season progresses and as we get closer to, particularly to FRC. So first, I'd like to introduce Dean Roberts, who's our chairman of our board.
Okay, thanks, Ron. Hopefully you can all hear me. Good evening. Welcome, everybody. It's wonderful to be at the start of another season. I hope you and your family are keeping well and staying safe. At this time of year, I get quite reflective about what we do. When you think about the big picture of what STEM education's for, you know, when you think of some of the challenges we have as a nation, and as a world, global warming, sort of pandemics, dementia, all the solutions, or most of the solutions, come via people with a STEM education, and I think that's really what we're about here. I know I'm preaching to the converted, but we really are a solutions-based organization, and it's really great to be part of that. Just as a sidebar to that, I sort of caught, there was a Washington Post article this morning on a fellow team in Afghanistan. So our thoughts ought to be out there with spare a thought for the all-girls team in Afghanistan. I hope they're safe and can get themselves sorted out. So that's a little bit of a worrywart. The board, what do we do? I think I've mentioned this before, and I won't labor it. We're sort of about the governance, finance, and strategy of the organization. We're a strong board. I'm very proud to say we have a very engaged board. If you're remotely interested, go onto the website and look at About Us, and we're sort of hidden in there somewhere, but you'll find the board of directors. We have 16, including Leanne, who's an ex officio. Very strong team and very engaged in what we do to make things happen. I like to think we're very much about enabling you to do what you want to do and what you need to do and to deliver our mission. So what have we been up to on the board? Well, I think a lot has taken a lot of our time on the board, and a lot of debate actually is our interaction with headquarters, first headquarters, which you're probably aware that there's essentially two entities. There's us, First Chesapeake, which are sort of very much responsible for the operation on the ground and delivering the services and so on. And then there's headquarters that does a lot of the strategic thinking and game design and so on. And there's inevitable dialogue between our two organizations. We're a standalone organization here at First Chesapeake. So we have to sort of look after our own business, so to speak. But we have an ongoing dialogue with the headquarters group, both on the short term, and the short term is about what we're actually doing, over the next few months. We're having a lot of dialogue on that, and then long term, we're trying to get around some of the sort of wrinkles in our relationship that sort of slows us down. And trying to address those, and that's one of the things we're trying to do in the background that you won't see visibility of, but hopefully you'll see the results of in a much slicker operational tempo. The other things we're doing was a review of our governance documents. Again, that sounds incredibly boring, but it is one of those things we have to do, like board membership, how long are their terms, Are we doing enough to make sure we have a diverse board? So that's another thing we're doing. And also, we're actually, we've spent some time over the last 6 months or so thinking about under-resourced activities, and hopefully there's some sort of maybe some exciting developments in the pipeline that you'll see rolling out in the next 6 months or so. And finally, before I sign off and hand over to Leanne, I just want to give a shout out to the courses that are being made available on equity, diversity and inclusion. Conversations to Change, very important. I'm actually going to join one of the courses because I treat it. You're never too old to learn, and there's always things to be learned, and I value participating in some of these things. So I think that's about it that I wanted to say. We're about helping you to do your job on the board. So that's what we're trying to do. Hopefully we're doing our job. I'm sure you'll let us know if we're not. But on that sort of comment and that observation, let me hand over to Leanne.
Okay. So, hey guys, good to see everyone. New season coming here. Before I jump into this slide, I did want to thank Accenture Federal. They are our sponsor for the town halls this calendar year. So we just want to say a big thanks to them for being our sponsor. Some of you may know that that not all of us are in the office during the summer. We do break during the summer, so our staff can have some time to kind of recuperate, to be with their families. And so now everyone's back in the office. So we're here. As always, if you have any questions, if you have any ideas, please know that our phone numbers, our emails, everything can be found on the website under About Us. And don't hesitate to reach out to us. We like to hear from you. We like to hear your ideas, and we're happy to answer questions. So anyway, that's that. Next slide. I did want to reiterate, we said this last year, things haven't changed, that the health and well-being of our teams and volunteers, that those really are our top priorities. And so we're in these conversations with headquarters, with our potential venues. We just want to let you know that we are going to continue to follow the most recent recommendations from the CDC, the WHO, local health agencies this season. And masks were mandatory, among other things. Masks were mandatory last year. And so I just want to make sure that everyone realizes that, again, this year, masks will be mandatory for any team or volunteer participating in a First Chesapeake sanctioned event. So I wanted to give a couple of shout outs here. And the first one is to the Maryland Tech Invitational. Now, I will say, Maryland Tech Invitational is their own entity, so we don't really get any credit for this, other than I think Ron maybe drove some of the fields over there for them. But they got the highest live feed views of any first FTC event on Twitch. They got over 12,000 views, and that was a few weeks ago. They did a great job. We kind of used MTI last year as kind of a springboard or a model for us to get started on planning our FTC events for the season. So kudos to them for another great event. I also wanted to give a big shout out to Team Blue Cheese 1086 Deep Run High School. They hosted the first successful FRC scrimmage last month. And so congratulations to them for taking the plunge and doing that first FRC off-season event. There are going to be 2 more FRC off-season events. Blue Ridge Brawl is going to be September 18th, and then the Battle of Baltimore is going to be October 15th. You can find more information on our website. All you've got to do is go on the homepage and go under the upcoming events that are off to the side. Now, I want to talk about a couple of outreach opportunities that we have coming up, because we do have spaces for teams. The first Programs Expo is going to be at the Keystone Truck and Tractor Museum. That's in Colonial Heights. It's a really cool museum. They've got something like 125,000 square feet of exhibit space of trucks and tractors and old cars, and it's really, really cool. And we're going to be doing our first programs expo there. It's just an outreach opportunity for teams. It's free. There are some spaces that are still available. So if you are interested, please contact Ron, and he can give you more details. And then we're also having a First Programs Expo and FTC Scrimmage, sponsored by Qualcomm, at the Science Museum of Western Virginia, and that's going to be on September 11th. This is going to be a really cool event. The Science Museum is opening up free admission that day. They're expecting lots of families to come through. So this is a great opportunity for us to share first programs with folks out in the Roanoke area. And it's also just a great opportunity for the FTC teams to get together before the kickoff and just kind of get to know each other again. We do still have spaces available for the FTC scrimmage. And not only is it free, but we are also providing lunch. So if you are interested, please contact Tim Farmer. Tim is our Rise Up manager out in Southwest Virginia. He's organizing all this, and he is also on our About Us page on the website. So we'll keep going. The FTC Kickoff, sponsored by InSource Solutions, is going to be on September 18th. We're hoping to host 3 live kickoffs with Meet the Fields in Western Maryland, the DC metro area, and Central Virginia. We are going to limit it to 5 teams per venue. If you want more information, you can contact Ron. And of course, we'll be broadcasting live as well. But for more information, just contact Ron. And then just going back to the Conversations for Change, sponsored by Qualcomm, workshop that Dean had mentioned earlier. I attended it last Saturday, the first session, and I have to say that it was just a really great discussion. Now, we have gotten questions about people who said, I can't make this workshop, can I listen to the recording? And because we want to encourage open and honest conversations, we are not recording these sessions. I realize that we usually do record things and post it. This time we are not, but spaces are available. It really is a great discussion. I got a lot out of it. So if you want more information, go on our website. And next slide. Oh, and then we are hiring. First, Chesapeake is looking for individuals 18 or older who would like to work with kids in our middle schools and high schools. And we're looking for folks who want to do classroom or remote instruction. We've got kind of a little bit of everything out there. The good thing is that compensation is $21 to $25 an hour, which is pretty good. And we also build in planning time there. So if you're interested in learning more, you could go to our careers page on our website, or you can just contact me. And then we are also looking for a new director of development. So if any of you out there are stellar fundraisers, or you know of a great fundraiser, please get in touch with me. We will probably be filling that position around October, but we are accepting applications now. And then I just wanted to mention 2 other things before I pop off. One is that the Alumni Ambassador Program, sponsored by Booz Allen Hamilton, should be returning this year. We're just finalizing details with Booz Allen Hamilton. This is a great opportunity for alumni to not only get more involved in some of our key volunteer positions, but also it's a great opportunity for these alumni who go through the program to give money back to their teams, because each alumni is given a stipend that they can then grant to their team. And it doesn't have to be a team in the Chesapeake district. If you're from Colorado, but you're living in Maryland right now and you're part of this program, you can give that money to your team in Colorado. So it's kind of cool. This will be the 3rd year that we've done it, and we'll be posting more information about it later. Also, Dominion Energy is sponsoring our Women in STEM scholarships again this year, and more information on that will probably be coming out around October, maybe early November as well. So please keep an eye out for that, because they do offer 3 scholarships. And it's just a really cool program. So anyway, I know that y'all didn't tune in to listen to me, really. You want to hear Ron. You want to hear him explain what's going on with this season. So here you go, Ron.
Thanks. Hopefully I have enough answers. I know I don't have all the answers because, like we said earlier, this year is definitely not going to be a totally normal year either. Hopefully somewhere in between there. But I really wanted to kind of, point out one of our biggest problems we've been having is, normally in a normal year, we'd have all our events in the schools. And this year it's been a real challenge getting schools. A lot of schools want to do an event at them, but nobody wants to commit to that event at this moment in time. And we can kind of understand why. So what we're waiting a little bit until the schools start and we can see if we can confirm things as we go. We're also looking at commercial venues, similar to what we did last year. And probably leaning more towards those in the bigger metropolitan areas where the numbers are higher. The big thing there is dealing with these, I'm calling them potential surges, but quite obviously we're seeing a surge now. If you look at that, the dotted line there with all the dots on it, that's what the number of cases and how it's going up. The point on that chart really is they're looking for this delta to kind of peak somewhere around the beginning to middle of October. Those are the numbers on there for all of the U.S., but Maryland and Virginia are kind of tracking very similar. So, that Lambda variant is right behind it. These models here don't have that one built into it yet, but they within the next week or so, they'll have added those. And just so everybody knows, there's like all those models, and it's hard to read on this little eye chart on the bottom there, but all those models from all the different colleges and agencies and stuff, this is a composite of all of them kind of put together to say where it's going to go. To me, the scary thing is it looks like, we're headed in the same direction we were, at the beginning of the year when this whole thing started last year. So we're going to have to deal with those things for the year. Just like last year, and I think Leanne already touched on this. Obviously we're going to follow CDC and local guidelines. And they're not always going to be the same every place you go. We're a big geographic area between, all of Virginia and all of Maryland and DC. So different guidelines are going to happen at different times. And, we're basically going to follow them in those local areas. So, in essence, we're developing the event strategy similar to how we did last year. Last year, the restrictions were much, much higher. If you remember right, we ran FTC events in particular with only 10 people at them because that was the requirement. And at this point, we're not thinking we're going to get down to that again. But we want to make it scalable so we can start in the higher end and move downwards. And then at events, just like we kind of did last year, we don't want teams intermixing. We want to keep the teams in their own little pod so that you're not exposed. You expose the least number of people that we possibly can at them. And then, we're selecting venue sites similar to last year where, we're trying to pick some sites that are where people don't have to do overnight stays. And I know there's some people that are in these more remote areas. That's more of an issue because it's harder to do. But for the most part, we're trying to do that. And, we want to be flexible with state and local guidance changes whenever they come up. We talked about some of these last year. So the options that we are looking at right now is if you had the traditional in-person events, that's something that, FRC and FTC have. Hybrid, which is similar to or a version of what we did last year for FTC, and then remote, the FTC is doing it the same. So when they come out with the game for FTC, you actually would be able to run all three of those options through it. We're focusing on more on that hybrid event. If you kind of look at this one as something we talked about last year, is like, our traditional events were held at schools. You have a lot of people at them, having these crowd limitations and venue availability and all these things that are kind of in place, and teams not being able to travel far distances and, all of those things. We've kind of staying away from them, particularly for FTC, which is coming up. And we'll talk about FRC in a minute. But, the goal here with the hybrid is, it's going to be a smaller event, single day event. We'll limit attending team members and mentors depending on what the current local requirements are so that we keep our numbers low. Remote judging for all the awards and the Dean's List will occur, similar to, just like we did the hybrid portion for FTC last year. And then the majority of the volunteering is going to be remote because of that. I mean, if you go to any event, most of our, usually half of our volunteers are actually judges. So having those remote takes some of that away. We continue with the remote awards ceremony kind of after the fact in these cases. And, if we had to go to remote events, we still could flip to the remote if we had to for FTC. And it kind of works the same as that did last year as well. So, for FTC, you can see we're planning on that hybrid model, using that hybrid model, do all the judging remote. We'll close our borders, so we won't let people from other states and that into the territory. And then that home area registration preferences, we'll try to get the events that are physically close to you, so you don't have to do any overnight travel, and hopefully not too far. We have the same kind of refund policy we did last year, where if we're forced to cancel events and we can't hold them at all, you get a 50% refund of the events that got canceled. And this is kind of the season timeline. One of the things, and I know some of the Maryland teams aren't necessarily used to this, but we've always just, we send out invoices to teams right at the beginning to kind of get you signed up for the season, so we know how many events to have and where and all that stuff. So on September 1st, we're going to send out the invoices to all the teams that from last year and the year before, basically, simply because I know there's a lot of teams that didn't compete last year that have talked about coming back this year. And so we'll send those out. The registration fee is going to be the $300, just like it was before in the past. And then the kickoff on the 18th is going to be, Leanne already touched on, it's going to be in the 3 locations. And we will stream all of those. The goal there is to, we'll have a field set up there with the field elements. So the teams that want to go to those events physically, and we'll come out with the exact locations as we're just trying to firm those up now, the addresses. But I think somebody asked about it earlier. Part of that will be, one of those will be in the Richmond area, and then we'll have one in the DC area, and then the one in Western Maryland. We plan on having a head ref kind of walk through strategy session afterwards as well, and then teams can come through, and those 5 teams we talked about can come through and look at the field. We're also thinking about having the field open for like the rest of that day and scheduling other teams so that teams could come in throughout the day to kind of get a look and feel and hands-on the field, to see what the field elements are like. And it's always much nicer to see them in person than it is on video. But if you can't make it in, we will be streaming them anyway. So that's that. And in October 15th is when we plan on opening up the registration for actual physical events. And just like we've done in the past, the first round will open up for your first event pick on the 15th, and then we'll close that. And then the next week we'll open up the second round pick, and then we'll close that. And again, contrary, we did this last year this way. We used the lottery system. I know some of the teams that didn't compete last year from Maryland used to use a setup where it was first come, first served. And I know that First used to do that with FRC as well, and it took their server down. So we prefer to kind of use the lottery thing, make it a little fairer anyway, in case you can't get on right away. So you got a whole week to get them in. And then third place, we'll open the third place up the beginning of November. And in some cases, second place for teams that are coming in, could be first or second place you'll be registering for if you haven't already selected to do that. The championship at this point, we're focusing on the season right now. There will be a championship, no question about that. And, there'll be at the qualifiers of these season qualifiers, people will qualify to move forward to go to championship. But we just haven't nailed down the championship and where it's going to be and how many teams and all that stuff yet. So that's kind of yet to be determined. Right. And we have some tentative dates for FTC events, and again, this is in Virginia. We've run, we always run an event in November, and it always fills up. And in Maryland, I know they don't start usually until a month later, but we're planning on doing one event in in November to kind of get started, and it'll help us figure out all the technical issues and all those things and get those settled in. And then, we pick a couple dates in December, and then the rest of them will be flowing through January, into the beginning of February. And keep in mind, those dates may turn out to be, depending on how we have to run them. I mean, in the perfect world, we put 36 teams through on each one of those dates. But if we can't do 36 teams and let's say we can only do 18 teams, we'll run a Saturday and a Sunday event. So half will go on one day, half on the other. So these, maybe a 2-day event in all of these. So all our venues we're trying to nail down. We're going to try to do it for both days in there. And also the other one here is, just like last year, we had a lot of times in our venues that we had 3 venues were going simultaneously. That's probably going to occur in here also. Let's see. And then I just wanted to kind of include this chart in here because it's kind of the thinking of how we're going to be able to modify things as things go. If you look at it, they've got we're using the 2 factors in there, the 7-day incidence rate and the percent positivity rate. And if you go by both of those now, if you took just all of Virginia and all of Virginia, DC, and Maryland, they're actually all in the moderate level. Virginia is actually getting close to the top of the moderate level at the moment, but in all cases, there's several counties in both states that are actually in the substantial level already. So what we were kind of looking at is, like, if you went back to the July timeframe, that's where you fall into the max number of teams of being 36. We aren't thinking that we're going to be there, so we're really kind of thinking we're going to end up with a 2-day event, with 18 teams going through each day. And as you can see, what we're trying to do this year is make sure that we can, if at all possible, the 2 versus 2, 2-team alliance versus a 2-team alliance at an event, so that it is like a traditional event. And all we would do is scale the number of team members that could actually attend at that particular point in time. So, we prefer not to get below that if we can, but like last year, if they went back and got restricted to 10 people, we have to figure out how to get there. That's why I put on this chart that it's a draft, because it's going to change. It's going to have to be a little bit fluid as the season progresses. Right. The big thing on here is for spectators, we're not expecting to have any spectators, so it'd only be team members that would be there. In all cases, I mean, we'll stream it on Twitch. We'll even do that kind of audience interaction we did with the Zoom thing last year that some teams took advantage of, where they can talk to their team at the event and that kind of thing. And that's pretty much it. I included that number of people on site just so you can kind of see, because I think, if you, as it goes down, if we can stay in the 150 person range, I think we'll probably be okay. But what's going on? Leanne already touched on these. I just wanted to really kind of point out the Blue Ridge Brawl still has a bunch of spots available. So if you want to go to it, I mean, that'd be fantastic. I'm sure they would have it. If you go to their website, you can sign up on there. The Battle of Baltimore, I believe at this time it's actually has a wait list. It's full with a wait list to get into it. So kind of go from there. So, I mean, I think we touched on some of these already, but, Dean's List, we'll do that judging remotely. This is specifically for FRC. The way it is right now, all the other awards will be in person at the event. Okay. We're going to close our borders to out-of-district teams, so we won't have people coming from other states coming in and out. And the masking thing and any of the COVID policies we have will be followed by everyone at the event. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're a team, you're a mentor, you're a volunteer, or whoever, or staff. Pretty much, everybody follows those rules. And if you don't, I mean, if a team member doesn't want to wear a mask, then the whole team is going to have to actually leave. It's not something that, it's the biggest thing I think that makes people uncomfortable is if I'm there and nobody else is wearing a mask, I feel uncomfortable if I go in the store that way anymore. So, we want to make it the best for everybody. And again, we said no spectators other than teams. Now, for First headquarters, the big thing right now is they are planning for traditional only events. So it's a 40-team traditional event is what we're planning our venues for at this moment in time. All right. I know some people have asked about refund policy, and they're coming out with a refund policy, and that should be out sometime in like mid-September is what we're hearing at least. The other one is I know another qualifying ranking points. So if an event gets canceled, and how they do ranking points is on a case-by-case basis. So if you have two events and one of them, it's towards the end of the season, it gets canceled, how do you figure the other ranking points? In the past, they've done with snow cancellations, they've done it so that they just doubled your ranking points from the first one. But, there's no saying that that's exactly what they're going to do, though. In the snow cases, they've done that in the past. That's all. And I include the same chart on the bottom because I get a little nervous with having 40 teams. The thing that we could possibly vary is the number of people coming to it from a team. So, but the numbers are pretty high. You can see that with a regular 40-person team, I mean, you're talking 1,000 people even with no spectators. And having volunteers at 40 is, if you have all the judges there, you got 20 judges there plus another 20 volunteers just to operate that event. So we're working with with headquarters and in different conversations about how we can get down to the smallest numbers we can get down to and still run an event that everybody's comfortable in doing. But that's where it kind of stands right now. For FRC, the kickoff is on the 8th of January. We currently have 4 of the 5 places that we normally ran kickoffs at that have said that they would do them. One of the things that First has going to allow us to do is convert them to drive-throughs if we need to. So if all the kits get shipped to the school and the school doesn't feel comfortable having something, we'll hand the kits out in a drive-through area outside the school. And then the dates for the FRC events, it's basically through the whole month of March, just like it always is. And again, just like the FTCs, obviously you have multiple events going on at the same time. So on 315, there may be events in 2 different locations. Okay. And then the championship on there, the dates on there for the championship are there, but it's kind of to be determined how that's actually set, how we run that, whether it's a 1 division, 2 divisions, and how that works, because at this point we don't even know how many teams we're going to have coming back. So we can figure it out. If we get as an example, we have actually 4 rookie teams already signed up in FRC. If we got a bunch more teams, then we would obviously want to do the dual division. But if the numbers are low, that's going to affect that. So it's kind of a question. We can't answer until we actually find out a little more what's going on. All right, these are a bunch of questions that folks sent in along the way here. And so we in the before the town hall, if an event host cancels a district event, will the event be rescheduled? If so, when and where? That's kind of a hard question to answer, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons why we're looking at schools and commercial facilities and so on, so that we have a little more control over that. But if we have to cancel an event and we have to reschedule the event, we won't really know when and where. The whole point would be is we have to try and get that in before our championship would occur. So we have that, we have a couple extra weeks in there. So Virginia, Maryland, DC schools have mask mandates for all students. Will we? I think we already answered that. We're going to have the mask mandates in there for everything in there, unless the world got drastically better and nobody's wearing masks anywhere. But at this point, it's masks for every event and everything that we do, including outreach and so on. COVID policies differ for volunteers, students, mentors. No, the COVID policies are the same for everybody. Doesn't matter, which category you fall into in there. How will we enforce safety protocols? Will there be penalties? What about volunteers and so on? It's basically, a zero tolerance kind of policy. Is if you don't follow them, none of us feel safe. And so, if it's a team member that does it, the whole team is as one. Would basically have to leave. I mean, that's kind of how we ran it last year, specifically with FTC. And honestly, we didn't have. I was just so impressed that people all felt like they should follow those policies, whether they necessarily agreed with them or not. They all wore masks and glasses and all that stuff. So, what contact tracing procedures will we have at events? Again, that'll be the same thing as it was for FTC last year. We actually used the consent and release forms. So when students came, they handed in the paper version of the consent and release. We separated that, we put them in a folder and actually in a lockbox, and kept them in that lockbox in case we needed to turn them over to the Board of Health in case, some cases happen. We were very fortunate that we didn't have any issues with that. So it worked out for us. But if it did, we would, that's the goal. So the only person that would have that information also would be the CHS staff person at that event. How will district points be handled if a team is unable to attend a second district event? That one is if your team can't attend it, but the event still goes on. It's you don't get the points from it. They don't make exceptions in there that I know of at all. That's something that if that happened, we'd have to talk with first headquarters about what we would do with it. But for the most part, in that case, if you can't go to an event, but the event can go on, that happens in a normal year. Not because of COVID, but just because for some reason you can't attend. We would potentially try to get you in another event if we could, but nothing we can do about it if your school shuts you down. Will events discourage shouting by not playing music? I would give you an example, like at MTI, when at MTI they played music, people that are, I wouldn't say they're necessarily shouting, but they they get excited and maybe sing along or whatever. As long as the folks were keeping kind of in their own little pod, they were keeping the whole team was together over there, not close to anybody else. That's kind of what we were running through. So that's kind of what we would see happening in here. I mean, without having all the extra people at the event playing, you're not going to have as much going on anyway. If you have 10 team members there, they're usually pretty busy doing stuff. So, when where there's dead space in there, we probably would play music just like we always always have. And this one here, the next one, which volunteer positions involve the greatest number of close personal interactions, and what would we do about this? I mean, in all these cases, I think, first headquarters is even rethinking what some of the volunteer positions are. But in all these cases, we would try to limit the amount of exposure. And again, it probably would vary depending on what threat level, when you went from the green to the red, where we were in that case, what we would limit. Those kind of policies will come out, just before we start doing events. So we won't be doing that, saying how we're going to run volunteers and how we're going to run teams and all that stuff until we get closer, when we know more of what the current conditions are. Will events continue to loan out safety glasses to visitors? No, there won't be. There shouldn't be any visitors there other than the teams, and the teams need to supply all their own safety glasses. We don't give out safety glasses to them. The only ones we always make sure we take care of our volunteers and make sure that we can get them safety glasses if we need to. But that's pretty much it. And in those cases, we're not going to loan them to them. They would get the safety glasses and keep them, so they would have them for all the other events they went to. Let's see. Will events remove the high fives? Yeah, I mean, events have pretty much everywhere removed high fives that I know of. High fives are pretty much gone with all things. One of the things we've talked about is if we did have in-person events with the award ceremony and so on, we probably wouldn't have the whole team come down anyway. We would just have a couple representatives from that team come down and pick up their awards and take them back to the rest of the team. Can you describe how event staff will handle participants? Personal information, health data. We aren't collecting any health data whatsoever. So that's not anything that we even want to get into. But as far as like the consent and release things, like I already said, we take them, we collect them, put them in a folder, and then put them in a lockbox. And they only get used again if we need to, if we needed to go to the health department in that area to figure out who else you came in contact with. And I think I got a duplicate in there. So let's see. Oh, and the last one on here, considered pre-purchasing logistics solutions. I mean, basically, I guess, we're a STEM organization, try to promote STEM. And us getting into the travel and lodging side of things is not something, first off, we have expertise in, but secondly, we don't even, we don't actually have, we'd have to hire somebody that was a travel agent to be able to do this. And the biggest thing is, if we were to buy that stuff, we have to have the funds to be able to buy it. So we'd have to find a sponsor that was willing to pre-do this. Okay. That one's there. All right. So can you pop up some of the other questions? Yeah. Will these slides be available online after presentation? Yeah, we can make them available. If I understand correctly, they will be planning for hybrid FTC events with remotes as backup. Okay, so I'm not sure that this question, for FTC, we are planning on the fact that we could do the larger event, but not with, so if you look at that, went back to that other chart I had, you're basically looking at, if you had a 36 team event, you still would be doing remote judging at it, and the teams would be there competing. There is that is the top, event that we would be planning. So that is no different. I mean, if I know in the past, and I don't recognize the name, so I don't know. I mean, in the past for Virginia, we've run some, 48 team events. which were double divisions and all that. We aren't planning on running anything quite that big. So this would be a 36 team event, still with no audience, that came there other than the teams themselves. So, the other, we wouldn't have the stands to put people into. Another question? How will CHS handle COVID protocols different from the school requirements? We will follow whatever the local requirements are. I mean, obviously, if we're in a school and we're doing this in a school, we have to follow what that school or that school district says. But if we're in a commercial venue, we will follow whatever, the COVID policies are in that particular local area. So like last year, we had some events at the Tractor Museum. So we would follow whatever COVID policies there were in that particular area. Okay, so this question, so would all 36 teams be there or would they be rotated out? So the big thing on here is, and that's what that other chart I had there is, in a perfect world, you could have 36 teams there all at the same time. If for some reason the numbers are going up, we don't want to expose all 36 teams at the same time. We will cut back on the number of teams at the event. We're shooting for that 18 as the fallback from the 36. The whole goal is we'll run it just like a traditional event would run, if at all possible. And with the 18 teams, we think we'd be able to run it the closest to that. So if we missed anybody's question, maybe you can type it again if we didn't catch them. Any other?
Ron, can I just jump in for a second and clarify a little bit on that? What if schools have policies?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make it clear that we would err on the side of caution. So if perhaps schools did not say that people had to be masked in the building, we would still say they would.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that one because I was thinking it would roll the other way, but because last year we had in the couple of cases, we had the case where the students were allowed to meet at the schools, but the school wouldn't let them go to an event at all. And when that happens, there's not much we can do to change that. Any other questions? All right. I guess we had a typo in one of the dates. Was that an FTC date? Was that it? Or an FRC date? 3/5. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah. Supposed to say 3/5, not 3/15, because we don't go backwards in the calendar. So I messed that one up. Sorry about that, everybody. And keep in mind, we have that kind of in those weeks because with the championship, scheduled for the 6th, we wanted to give enough time for, if you're done on the 26th, gives you a little bit of time to work on your robot before going to championship. The members of a team is not following mask guidelines. How should that be reported and to who? Well, in all those cases, it should be reported to the CHS staff person that's there. Obviously, you want to ask somebody to put their mask back on or whatever, but if they refuse to do it, we're pretty much will be checking people coming in the door when they're handing their forms in to know whether they have a mask or not, and they won't. When you're handing your thing in, you won't be able to come in if you don't, if you're not wearing your mask. And mask and safety glasses and that are important.
Ron,
Yeah.
I just want to say I just got a clarification from headquarters, and they wanted to make sure that we said we thought that probably something would be coming out in September about a refund policy, but actually what they have said is that they are working on accommodations for season disruption with more information available in September. It is not guaranteed this includes payment terms. So that is the statement from headquarters.
Okay. I guess they're listening. Right. Any other questions? There we go. We'll be regular updates on all this as we move forward. Absolutely, we'll be updating you as we figure out more of the season going forward. I don't know if we have any other town halls at this point planned, but we probably, if we need to do them, we will do them every month if we had to. I think we have one planned, right, Leanne? Is that true? A follow-on or no? You're muted.
We were doing it every other. We were going to do it every other month in the fall, but I can go back and I can go back and double check, and we can make sure that goes out in our follow up with everybody.
I mean, I think not only do we necessarily have to have these, but we will send out stuff as we get the more details of the events and how you register and all that stuff. We'll pass that along as we go. Yes, the Hampton Coliseum is planned for the district championship. All right. Any other questions anybody has? Again, I guess we can reiterate and kind of builds on the message that Leanne got from the headquarters folks is that, as we know more from them, we will schedule something as quickly as we can to get any information out to you about how it may or may not change our season. So I guess if that's it for questions, thank you all for coming, and thank our sponsor, Central Federal, and if you can, we'll play a little video, short clip. So everybody have a good night.